Captain Park's voice crackled through the comm system. Negative, Lieutenant. Complete your scheduled survey pattern and return to the Endeavor. We'll send a proper team after your return. Tae-ho frowned at the coordinates blinking on his screen. The signal was fading. Whoever was down there might not have time to wait for a proper team. Control, the signal is deteriorating. Survivors may not have much time. Your orders stand, Lieutenant. Complete your pattern. Tae-ho's hand hovered over the controls. 17 years of perfect service record, never disobeyed an order. But something about this felt important. I'm experiencing some navigation issues, Control. Signal cutting out. We'll report when systems stabilize. He switched off the main communication channel before Captain Park could respond and redirected the shuttle toward the canyon. Breaking protocol could end his career, but he couldn't ignore a distress call, no matter the source. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, buffeted by strong winds as Tae-ho guided it between towering rock formations. The signal grew stronger as he approached a narrow ravine barely wide enough for his craft. At the bottom lay the source, a crashed ship unlike anything in Earth Coalition records. The vessel's hull gleamed with an iridescent quality despite obvious damage. Parts of it seemed to be made of crystalline material that somehow remained intact despite the impact. No Earth ship incorporated such technology. Tae-ho landed nearby and donned his environmental suit. Atmosphere readings showed breathable air, but protocol demanded caution when approaching unknown craft. He approached slowly, weapon holstered but ready. A jagged opening in the hull allowed entry. Inside, the alien technology was even more apparent. Control surfaces seemed to be living crystal, now dimming as power systems failed. And there, strapped to what appeared to be a pilot's chair, was a humanoid figure. Tae-ho approached cautiously. The being appeared female, with features surprisingly similar to human, except for skin that seemed to glow from within, shimmering with opalescent patterns. Silver-white hair framed a face both alien and beautiful. Her eyes were closed, but shallow breathing indicated she lived. Around them, the ship's systems sparked and whined. Something was wrong. Critically wrong. His suit sensors detected rising energy patterns consistent with an imminent power core. Breach, there was no time for proper first contact protocols. Tae-ho released the restraints and lifted the alien woman. She was lighter than expected despite being nearly his height. Her skin felt warm through his gloves, almost electrical. "I'm getting you out of here," he said, knowing she couldn't understand, but hoping his tone conveyed his intentions. A loud crack reverberated through the ship as crystalline components began shattering. Tae-ho ran, cradling the unconscious alien as he navigated back through the wreckage. He reached his shuttle just as the first explosion rocked the canyon. With the alien secured in his passenger compartment, Tae-ho launched the shuttle, narrowly, escaping as the alien craft detonated in a brilliant flash of blue-white energy that momentarily blinded his sensors. When vision returned, there was no evidence the ship had ever existed, just a scorched crater in the canyon floor. Tae-ho looked at his passenger. In the better light of his shuttle, he could see injuries along her side that leaked a silvery fluid. Using the emergency medical kit, he applied universal coagulant patches and stabilized her as best he could with his limited knowledge. As the shuttle broke atmosphere, Tae-ho reactivated communications. "Control, this is Lieutenant Commander. Kim returning with a survivor." "Repeat that, Lieutenant?" Captain Park's voice was sharp with disbelief. "I've rescued a survivor. Female. Non-human. Injured but stable. Prepare medical bay and quarantine protocols." The commotion that followed was exactly what Tae-ho expected. As he docked with the Endeavor, medical teams in full isolation gear waited. Security personnel too, weapons not quite pointed at him, but definitely ready. Captain Park met him at the airlock, face rigid with anger. 17 protocol violations. "Lieutenant, possibly ending your career." Tae-ho nodded. "Yes, sir, I understand." As they transferred the alien to a medical stretcher, her eyes fluttered open briefly. Silver eyes, pupilless, fixed directly on Tae-ho with surprising clarity before closing again. Something in that gaze made all the trouble worth it. 3 days passed before the alien woman regained consciousness in the Endeavor's medical bay. Dr. Yunji had kept her in a specialized containment field, monitoring her unusual physiology with growing fascination. The silvery blood contained elements unknown to Earth science, and her cellular structure seemed to conduct energy in ways human cells couldn't. Taeho had been confined to quarters when not being questioned about his decision to violate direct orders. Captain Park had filed a formal report, but held off on further action until they learned more about their unexpected guest. When the call came that she was awake, Taeho was escorted to medical by 2 security officers. The alien sat upright on the examination table, her silver eyes taking in everything with obvious intelligence. Dr. Yunji stood nearby, checking readings on her tablet. "Her vital signs are stabilizing," the doctor reported, "and the translation matrix has been analyzing her vocal patterns. It should allow basic communication." The alien woman looked directly at Taeho, recognition clear in her expression. She spoke, her voice musical with tones that seemed to harmonize with themselves. The translation device processed for a moment, then produced in slightly mechanical tones. "You are the one who rescued me from my vessel." Taeho nodded. "Yes, I'm Lieutenant Commander Taeho Kim of the Earth Coalition vessel Endeavor." "I am Nara," she replied, the translation smoothing out as the system adjusted. "Third daughter of High Counselor Dae Hyun of the Astari Diplomatic Fleet." Captain Park stepped forward. "We've observed Astari vessels from a distance but have never made direct contact. What brought you to this system alone?" Nara's luminescent skin dimmed slightly. "I was on a diplomatic mission. My craft was damaged by," she hesitated, "an unexpected meteor strike." Taeho noticed the pause but said nothing. "You have my eternal gratitude," Nara continued, focusing again on Taeho. "Among my people, a life saved creates a sacred bond." Before anyone could react, she rose from the examination table with surprising grace and approached Taeho. The security officers tensed, but Dr. Yunji waved them back. Nara stood before Taeho, her height nearly matching his. She raised her hands slowly, placing them gently on his shoulders. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. The contact lasted only seconds, but Taeho felt a strange warmth spread from the touch, like a mild electrical current flowing between them. Dr. Yunji gasped audibly. Captain Park looked confused. Communications Officer Sung-min, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, let out a barely suppressed snort of laughter. Nara stepped back, her skin pulsing with light patterns that suggested emotion. "What just happened?" Taeho asked, looking between the doctor and communications officer. Dr. Yunji checked her tablet. "According to our cultural database on the Astari, that gesture is the first step in their sacred binding ceremony between life mates." "Life mates?" Taeho repeated slowly. Sung-min couldn't contain himself any longer. "She just initiated what's essentially a marriage ritual, Lieutenant." Taeho stared at Nara. "Is that true?" Nara tilted her head slightly. "The life-debt bond is sacred among my people. When one saves another's life, they become responsible for that life until the debt is repaid. The forehead touch acknowledges this bond." "That's not exactly marriage," Taeho said, relief evident in his voice. "Not exactly," Dr. Yunji agreed, studying her data. "But it is the first stage in a process that traditionally culminates in a permanent union. In Astari culture, lifesavers often become life mates." Captain Park cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Kim's actions were against orders. He will face appropriate consequences. This ritual doesn't change that." Before further discussion could occur, the ship's communication system activated. "Captain," came the urgent voice of the bridge officer. "We're detecting an approaching vessel. It's Astari, sir." "On my way," Captain Park replied, giving Taeho a significant look. "Bring our guest to the bridge. Her people are here." As they walked through the corridors, Nara moved close to Taeho. "Your captain seems displeased with your rescue of me." I disobeyed direct orders, Teho explained. That's serious in our command structure. You would be punished for saving a life? Nara asked, genuine confusion in her voice. It's more complicated than that. The mission comes first. Protocol exists for everyone's safety. She considered this. Among the Astari, preserving life always takes priority over protocol. When they reached the bridge, the view screen showed an approaching vessel that resembled a massive crystalline nautilus. It dwarfed the Endeavor, its surface shimmering with the same opalescent quality as Nara's skin. They're hailing us, announced the communications officer. On screen, ordered Captain Park. The image shifted to show a stern-faced Astari male with elaborate markings across his skin and ornate attire that suggested high rank. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Nara. Daughter, he said, relief evident even through the translation. You live. Teho Kim floated through the reconnaissance shuttle, eyes fixed on the scanner readings. Another routine survey mission of Proxima b that would likely yield nothing interesting. The planet's barren surface stretched below him, all rust-colored, plains and jagged mountain ranges. Nothing ever happened on these solo missions, just hours of methodical data collection for Earth Coalition records. The sudden beeping of his emergency frequency scanner jolted him from his boredom. A distress signal? Here? He adjusted the controls, trying to pinpoint the source. The signal was weak but definitely artificial, coming from somewhere in the northern canyon region. Control, this is Lieutenant Commander Kim. I'm picking up a distress signal from Grid Sector 7 Alpha, requesting permission to investigate. Father, Nara acknowledged. Thanks to this human. She gestured to Teho. High Counselor Daehyun studied Teho with obvious interest. We have much to discuss, Captain Park, including the debt my daughter and our people now owe your officer. As diplomatic protocols were discussed, Sungmin leaned close to Teho and whispered, Congratulations again, Lieutenant. You've just become part of an interstellar incident. The Astari vessel docked with the Endeavor, connecting through a specialized airlock that adapted to the crystalline structure of the alien ship. Captain Park assembled a formal reception party, including Teho, who stood uncomfortably in his dress uniform. His career hung in balance, caught between breaking protocol and accidental alien diplomacy. High Counselor Daehyun entered the Endeavor with an entourage of 6 Astari officials. Like Nara, they had opalescent skin that seemed to pulse with internal light, though their markings were more elaborate, suggesting rank or family lines. Daehyun wore ceremonial robes studded with living crystals that resonated softly with his movements. Captain Park, the High Counselor said, bowing slightly, the Astari diplomatic fleet extends gratitude for the rescue of my daughter. We're pleased we could help, Captain Park replied carefully, though I must clarify that Lieutenant Commander Kim acted without authorization. Daehyun's attention shifted to Teho. Is this common among humans? To save lives without permission? Before Captain Park could respond, Admiral Jiwoo's voice interrupted from the communication screen. Earth Command had been monitoring the situation closely. This is Admiral Jiwoo of Earth Coalition Command. High Counselor, we welcome this opportunity for first official contact between our peoples. The Admiral's eyes flicked meaningfully to Captain Park. Captain, please escort our guests to the conference room. Lieutenant Kim will join the diplomatic team. In the privacy of the conference room, with only senior officers and Astari officials present, Admiral Jiwoo spoke bluntly through the secure channel. The Astari control 3 systems with dilithium deposits our coalition desperately needs. We've been trying to establish diplomatic relations for years. Whatever happens here, make it work. After the Admiral signed off, Daehyun turned to Teho. My daughter tells me you risked your position to save her life. It was the right thing to do, Teho said simply. Daehyun's skin flickered with patterns that the translation matrix couldn't interpret. She also tells me she has acknowledged the life-debt bond. Captain Park tensed visibly. About that, High Counselor. The bonding ritual is sacred to our people, Daehyun continued. For thousands of years we have honored the connection between lifesaver and life saved. It forms the foundation of our social structure. Nara sat quietly beside her father, her expression unreadable, With respect, Tejo said carefully. I'm not familiar with your customs. I was simply doing what any officer would do. Yet not what your officers are ordered to do, Daehyun noted with surprising shrewdness. My daughter is not merely any citizen. She is third daughter of the High Council betrothed to Minister Baek to secure peace between our political factions. Captain Park's eyes widened slightly at the implications. High Counselor, surely you don't expect— The bond has been acknowledged, Daehyun said firmly. To dishonor it would be a grave insult, not just to my family but to our entire cultural foundation. After the meeting, Tejo found himself alone with Captain Park in the officers' mess. You've created an interstellar incident, Lieutenant, Park said, pouring himself a strong drink. Command just sent new orders. You're to respect Astari customs and maintain positive diplomatic relations at all costs. They want me to pretend I'm engaged to an alien princess? Tejo asked incredulously. For now, yes. Until we find a diplomatic solution that doesn't offend a species we desperately need as allies. Over the next several days, as diplomatic discussions continued between the two vessels, Tejo and Nara were expected to spend time together. At first, these meetings were awkward, supervised affairs in the observation lounge or recreation deck, too. Tejo's surprise, Nara proved to be intelligent and curious about humans. She asked thoughtful questions about Earth customs and explained Astari traditions in return. Your people place great value on individual choice, she observed as they walked through the ship's small arboretum. It's very different from our emphasis on collective harmony. Is that why you accept arranged marriages? Tejo asked. Nara's skin dimmed slightly. My betrothal to Minister Baek was political. My father's moderate coalition needs support from traditional factions. And how do you feel about it? She touched a flower gently, its petals responding to her energy field. Minister Baek is powerful, but not kind. My shuttle mission was actually— She hesitated, then looked around to ensure they were alone. I was fleeing the marriage. The crash was no accident. Tejo stared at her in shock. Are you saying someone tried to kill you? I can't prove it, Nara replied softly. But Minister Baek would benefit if I disappeared and humans could be blamed. Later that night, Tejo received an encrypted message from Earth Command. Continue relationship with Astari diplomat. Learn everything you can. Alliance priority. 1. He deleted the message, thinking about Nara's revelation. What had begun as a simple rescue was becoming much more complicated and dangerous. The Astari diplomatic vessel maintained its position alongside the Endeavour for 7 days. During this time, Tejo spent increasingly long periods with Nara, officially as part of the cultural exchange program. What had begun as an awkward diplomatic necessity slowly transformed into genuine interest as they discovered shared passions for xenobotany and stellar cartography. Late one evening, they sat in the ship's data lab, Nara showing Tejo star charts from Astari territories. Your navigation systems are incredibly precise, Tejo remarked, studying the crystalline data tablet she had brought from her ship. Our crystals store and process information differently than your computers, Nara explained. They form connections, based on energy patterns rather than binary code. Tejo's thoughts drifted to her crashed shuttle. Did you manage to save any data from your ship before it exploded? Nara's skin darkened slightly, what Tejo had come to recognize as her equivalent of a frown. Only what was stored in my personal data crystal. She touched a small pendant at her neck. Why do you ask? I've been thinking about what you said, about your crash not being an accident. If someone sabotaged your ship, there might be evidence in the system logs. Nara hesitated, then unclasped the crystal pendant. I haven't had access to proper equipment to analyze it. Your systems are different. Tejo connected the crystal to a modified interface he had designed with help from the engineering team. The data appeared scrambled on the screen, but with Nara's guidance, he began isolating navigation records from her shuttle. There, he said suddenly, pointing to an anomalous code sequence. That's not a system malfunction. Someone inserted a program to gradually destabilize your guidance systems. Nara's skin pulsed with rapid light patterns. Can you trace who did it? Working through the night, they pieced together fragments of data from the crystal. Hidden within innocent-looking navigation updates was sophisticated sabotage code with a signature encryption pattern. "This is Minister Bayek's personal encryption key," Nara whispered, her voice trembling. "Only he would use this pattern." Further investigation revealed fragments of communications showing that Bayek had planned more than just eliminating Nara. He intended to blame her death on humans, creating a diplomatic incident that would derail the pending alliance between their species. "He wants an alliance with the Vorn Empire instead," Nara explained. "The Vorn offered him personal power in exchange for Astari technology." "We need to tell your father," Teho said. Nara shook her head. "All communications on the diplomatic vessel are monitored by Minister Bayek's supporters. My father is essentially under surveillance." Their solution came the next morning when Teho received a message. Minister Beck himself had arrived on the diplomatic vessel and requested a meeting with the human who had interfered with Astari affairs. The conference room was tense when Teho entered. Captain Park sat with a grave expression beside Admiral Jiwoo's video feed. Across the table, High Counselor Dae-hyun appeared tired, flanked by Minister Beck, a tall Astari with cold eyes and skin that barely flickered with light. "So this is the human who claims a bond with third daughter Nara," Beck said, his translated voice lacking the musical quality of other Astari. "How convenient that he found her alone, with no witnesses." "Lieutenant Commander Kim saved my life," Nara stated firmly from her position beside her father. "After her ship mysteriously crashed in isolated territory," Beck countered. "Perhaps we should question the timing." Teho remained silent, studying the 4 armed Astari guards positioned around the room. Their hands rested near crystal weapons at their sides. "Minister Beck has expressed concern about human involvement in our internal affairs," Dae-hyun explained carefully. "He has offered to escort Nara home personally to ensure her safety." Teho noticed the subtle pressure in Dae-hyun's voice. The High Counselor was not in control here. "Before any decisions are made," Teho said calmly, "I believe we should review all the evidence about Nara's crash." Beck's skin darkened. "The investigation is an internal Astari matter." "Interesting that you're so eager to dismiss evidence," Teho replied, watching one of the guards shift position slightly. "Especially regarding your personal encryption code in the sabotage program." The reaction was immediate. Beck's guards moved, reaching for their weapons, but Teho had been ready. Earthborn humans possessed reflexes and strength that evolved in higher gravity than the Astari homeworld. Before the first guard could draw his weapon, Teho had crossed the space between them, disarming him with a quick strike to the wrist. The second guard fired a crystal stun pulse that Teho dodged, using the conference table as a shield. Captain Park had dropped beneath the table, pulling his own sidearm. The remaining 2 guards hesitated, clearly shocked by the human's speed. "Enough!" Dae-hyun's voice cut through the chaos. "Minister Beck, explain yourself immediately." The Endeavor's conference room fell silent after Teho's display of human reflexes. Both Astari guards stood disarmed, their crystal weapons now in Teho's possession. Minister Bayek's face had lost its confident expression, replaced by poorly concealed fear. "You cannot trust these humans," Beck said, addressing High Counselor Dae-hyun but backing slowly toward the door. "They are dangerous, as this display proves." "What's dangerous?" Captain Park said, emerging from under the table with weapon drawn. "Is sabotage and attempted murder of a diplomatic envoy." Teho placed the confiscated weapons on the table and activated Nara's data crystal, which he had brought with him. The holographic display showed the sabotage code with Bayek's encryption signature clearly visible. "We discovered this in Nara's shuttle records," Teho explained. "The navigation system was programmed to fail gradually, making it appear like a mechanical problem." Dae-hyun's skin darkened with anger as he examined the evidence. "Minister Beck, these are serious accusations." "Fabrications," Beck hissed. "The human clearly manipulated this data to turn you against me." Admiral Jiwoo, who had been silently observing via the communication screen, spoke up. "High Counselor, Earth Coalition is prepared to provide full technical analysis of this data by independent experts." While they argued, Tae-ho noticed one of Bayek's guards touching a communication device on his wrist. Within moments, alarms sounded throughout both ships. Minister Bayek's supporters have taken control of the docking mechanisms, reported an Endeavour crew member over the intercom. They're forcing an emergency separation. Captain Park moved quickly to secure the conference room, but Bayek had already slipped out during the confusion. The ship lurched as the Astari vessel began pulling away. "We need to reach the full Astari Council," Nara said urgently. "Only they can stop Bayek before he convinces them to ally with the Vorn." Over the next hours, as the Astari diplomatic vessel retreated with Daehyun effectively a prisoner aboard, Tae-ho and Nara worked with Earth Command to establish direct communication with the Astari homeworld. Using modified crystal technology from Nara's pendant, they created a quantum communication link that bypassed standard channels Bayek would be monitoring. 3 days later, they stood before a holographic assembly of the full Astari Council. 12 elders whose skin patterns showed complexity beyond any Astari Tae-ho had yet seen. "Honorable Council," Nara began, "I present evidence of treason against our people." The evidence was damning. Not only did they have the sabotage code, but Earth intelligence had uncovered communications between Beck and Vorn representatives, promising exclusive technology exchange for military support of his faction. When the TU transmission ended, the Council promised immediate action. Within hours, reports arrived that Beck had been apprehended while attempting to escape to Vorn territory. A formal ceremony was arranged aboard the Endeavour to celebrate the new alliance between humans and Astari. Admiral Ji-woo arrived in person, along with newly freed High Counselor Daehyun and several council representatives. During the ceremony, Daehyun approached Tae-ho privately. "My daughter has explained the awkwardness of your situation," he said. "The life debt ritual was imposed without your cultural understanding. The Council acknowledges this and releases you from any obligation." Tae-ho glanced across the room, where Nara stood talking with Dr. Yoonji. Over their time together, what had begun as diplomatic necessity had grown into something neither had expected. "With respect, High Counselor," Tae-ho said, "I'd like to continue my relationship with Nara, not from obligation but by choice." Daehyun's skin brightened with surprise. "You would willingly accept the bond?" "I would, but in a way that respects both our cultures. We've proposed a joint ambassadorship program to build greater understanding between our peoples." The formal announcement came during the alliance signing. Captain Park, who had initially recommended Tae-ho for disciplinary action, now stood, witness as Tae-ho and Nara were officially appointed as the first joint ambassadors between their species. Later, as they watched the stars from the observation deck, Nara turned to Tae-ho with a mischievous light pattern rippling across her skin. "Should confess something," she said softly. "While the life debt is indeed sacred to us, the marriage aspect is not quite as automatic as I might have implied." Tae-ho's eyebrows rose. "You mean I wasn't obligated to marry you after all?" "Not exactly," she admitted. "But I hoped you might choose this path once you knew me better." Tae-ho laughed and took her hand, feeling the gentle energy that passed between them. Sometimes the best diplomatic solutions aren't found in protocol manuals. As the Endeavour set course for Earth, carrying the first Astari diplomatic delegation in history, Tae-ho reflected that his career had taken a path no training program could have prepared him for. By breaking protocol to save one life, he had changed the future of 2 civilizations and his own life forever.